excited to explore the profound power of spiritual awakening.
Hi, everyone. Through our shared experiences and those of our guests, we hope to inspire you to embrace self love and reveal that authentic core within you.
So, Jen's awakening journey led her to a profound realization about self care and the masks that we wear. We'll dive deeper into her story and explore how self love helped her break free from limitations. Jen,
Yeah.
thank you for agreeing to dive deep into your self love journey. Can you share with us the pivotal moment when you realized the need for self love and the impact that it has had on your life and your relationships?
Well, I started a personal development journey quite some time ago after a couple of dark nights of the soul with relationships and all those types of things. So I've been kind of trying to do it over a number of years. However, I feel like the pivotal moment for me where it literally threw me into radical change was last year when, after our retreat, actually, when things kind of spiraled out of control for me. I
Mm.
felt my mental health was suffering. The stuff was actually manifesting into physical pain. So I went from holding on all these things with my job that I do, like I work with in with clients fleeing family and domestic violence and homelessness, and taking all that stuff home, and really, it was really affecting me in ways that I didn't understand because I was so busy
Mm.
doing for everybody, giving so much of myself away and not enough of myself to myself. So it was manifesting in physical pain, and I had a breakdown. I couldn't even stand there and do the dishes because the pain in my back was excruciating, and I didn't want to live like that anymore. I would never have gone through with anything, but I was in a dark place.
Yeah.
Um, and it was then like when we when we get to the point of the pain being more, when the pain is too deep, and the fear of change isn't as scary, that's when we step into that radical change, and that's when we
Yeah.
start to shift. So that's what actually forced me into taking the steps and having weight loss surgery, which kind of led me down the further path of looking after myself. And as the weight has started to come off, it's really impacted me and how I treat myself and what I see in the mirror.
I love that. So you just spoke then to something that I feel is quite powerful, and that was that you there was this shift from like the fear of change
Hmm.
was actually greater than the pain that you're experiencing in your body, and then something happened that shifted that, right? It was like, okay, I actually don't want to stay like this anymore, and that, like, what was that like?
I think it was if nothing changes, nothing changes.
Mm.
Right. I'd gone so many years of trying to lose weight or trying to better myself or trying to feel better about myself. I'd go two steps forward and then 10 backwards. I would
Yeah.
lose weight. I'd lost up to 17 kilos and started really looking after myself. And then I went backwards. And it was things going on outside of me, like my relationships and everything at that time. And then I found my husband, and then I was in a really stable relationship with lots of
Mm.
love and affection and all that kind of stuff, but I actually gained more weight because I
Yeah.
was then throwing myself into the work and all the rest of it. So I feel like the fear of staying, the fear of change shouldn't be a fear. If anything, it's we need to step out of that and into comfort. Sorry, out of comfort
Mm.
and into courage, and that
Yeah.
is when the real transformation kind of happens. And I noticed that once I started to do that, magic started to come to me, like amazing opportunities started to come to me, and my life just got better and better, and it continues to do so. and and
Yes.
and people are even talking about, you know, that there's a light that I'm shining.
Yeah.
That they see this energy shift, and it's
I've definitely witnessed that in you.
Yeah, I take it back to we've got three selves. There's the core, the crud, and the crust. And I know some
Mhm.
people have heard me speak about this before. The core is your 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 ultimate being. It's pure love. It's what you are when you come into the world, when you're first born. It's not until our parents and society come in and start putting all these insecurities on us, like no. We learn the word no. We learn, no, you can't do that. No, you have to be this. No, you have to do that. By the age of this, you should have this, this, and this. And it becomes this whole rule that you have to do things this way or you're no good. And it
Yeah.
becomes into that whole self-worth thing. And then what that does is it creates insecurities. And that's what we call the crud. And so you've gone
Mm.
from being this pure soul to then having all of this heavy shit on you, and then on top of that, we've got all these insecurities, so we have to wear these masks or sprinkle it with friggin' hundreds and thousands to make it look pretty.
Mm.
So it's needing to chip away at that stuff to get back to who you really are.
Yeah. So going back to what you said before, like tying that into, the sprinkles, the is it the crust or the crowd on top?
The crud is the crap and the crust is the sprinkles.
Okay. So going back to that, right? You were saying before that you threw yourself into work. So you're working in a space where people really need your help, right?
Hmm.
And you were thriving in that space, but you were throwing yourself into work, right? And you were putting all your effort and time into helping these people. But what you weren't doing was helping yourself. So was that one of your masks that you wore, like the mask of the martyr, the fixer?
100%. I
Yeah.
mean, I remember even when we went on the retreat, it was,
Mm.
I remember having a panic when I couldn't access the Wi-Fi, and I'm like, "Oh shit, how am I supposed to be able to
Yeah.
know what's going on? Are they going to be okay without me?" And my husband was like, "It's okay, just don't worry.
Mm.
We've got this. Let me look after this. Let my son, who's old enough to look after himself, by the way, look after himself." I didn't have to do. I needed to relinquish control
Yeah.
and surrender. Just
Yeah.
when you think you've surrendered, you have to surrender more.
Yes, and some more. And you know that control is actually not for them. The control is for you. It's
Yep,
like creating that space of safety. And in that moment, you didn't feel safe in not knowing, and you
yep,
like needed to get in
yep,
there. And your husband's like, "Let me stand on my own 2 feet," right?
yep, yep. And I think it's
Yeah.
also too about the reason why it's not that I'm controlling because I feel like, they're doing it wrong or whatever. It's I want them to have the best experience. So I feel like I know what that is, or that's
Yeah.
what I used to think. But realizing that sometimes you got to step back and let people, you know, do things
Have
themselves
their
and
own
actually,
experience.
yeah, you can't control it.
Let
It
them
comes from a place of
create.
love.
Yeah.
It comes
Yeah.
from a place of love.
It does. It does. It does. So, going back to the concept of chipping away at the crust and the crud, which I find really intriguing. Can you elaborate on this in how it actually played a role in reconnecting you with your authentic self?
It made me think back to when I was a kid about the things I used to do, the way I used to be. I used to be this little superstar of the family where, it was all eyes on me, da 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 da. Whereas I would shrink myself around other people to allow them to shine their light.
Yeah.
And it made me start to think I need to not worry so much about what other people are thinking about me, because it doesn't matter
Oh,
how amazing I am, how beautiful I am, or how smart I am, or how much money I make, or even, you know, anything else. Someone's always going to find a fault because it's their perception of me is reflecting within themselves, so to speak. Like they are projecting. And
mm,
when I started to understand that, I started to really work on the things that I was seeing and my insecurities and start to see where I was projecting and needed to reflect, and
mm.
started to do the journaling and the work there. And it really kind of helped me not care anymore. Just like, I don't give a fuck.
Yeah. So going back again, just then you said something that really intrigued me, which was you were like this little pocket rocket superstar when you were younger, and
Mhm.
then all of a sudden something happened,
Yeah.
and you were worried about taking the shine off other people, right? So
Yeah.
there
Yeah.
feels like there's a fear of success there and what that means for you. What was that pivotal moment for you? Like what do you like if you reflect back to your childhood, like what do you think created? Sometimes they're just like the smallest little things. What, can you remember back to a time where you feel like that your brightness took away from someone else?
Yeah, I feel like it was understanding that a previous relationship where he didn't like the spotlight, or he had his own insecurities that I had to
Yeah.
then kind of be like, oh, I need to watch my P's and Q's. I need to watch the way that I'm doing things. And I like really kind of boxed myself,
Yeah.
because I didn't want at the time, I didn't want the relationship to kind of become shit,
And
because I wanted to
yeah.
do what he wanted me to do, or what
Yeah.
I thought he wanted me to do. And it was just the way that it kind of came across. I started trying to please him rather than being my authentic self.
Yeah. So do you feel like in that relationship you started to walk on eggshells?
Yes, 100%.
Yeah, I feel like that can like really create some reprogramming in our
Yeah.
minds. And even when we leave those types of relationships, we tend to take that with us without realizing.
Mhm.
It's like it becomes a learned behavior.
Yeah.
So
And I,
yeah.
I also ended up getting stuck in this victim mindset for quite a while too,
Mm,
because there was um, toxic behaviors both sides. I'm not going to say
yeah.
that I didn't, because I know that I played a part in that as well. And
Yeah.
that's radical ownership.
I
Is,
love that
it's
you own that.
it's taking responsibility. Probably not as
Yeah.
much as he did, but it's the same thing. Do you know what I mean? Like, you take
Yeah.
responsibility for the part you played in the fuck ups
Yeah.
and wear them, because our mistakes are our biggest
Mm.
learnings.
Yeah. I think that's really important too. Like, my story, my first marriage was not a very nice one. But
Mhm.
I came to my realization around that um, I had decided to stay. Like I was choosing to stay, right? And it
Mhm.
wasn't until I had that realization and owned that it was me that's like allowed myself and my children to stay in that relationship until I decided to leave.
Yep.
That was like a really pivotal moment. And I know that there's women, oh, and sometimes there's men out there in abusive relationships that actually feel like they can't because it's too dangerous, right?
Yep.
I get that, but there's still a lot of us that still choose to stay in these relationships hoping that they're going to change and see their ways. And
Mhm.
that there's a bit of ownership that we need to take to move forward. This comes back to the three things that we can control, right? Our words, our actions or reactions, and our thoughts. We can't change them. We can't, we can hope for change for them, but sometimes that's not their journey. And coming to
Yeah.
acceptance of that and making that choice, like I love that. I know that's a whole conversation for another day, but I just love that you have owned that part, and that helps you get to the point of healing, right?
Mhm. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, beautiful. So, trusting ourselves can be challenging. How did you learn to trust your intuition and the guidance coming through from spirit?
So I was actually, you were a big part of that. When we did the Speaking with Spirit many moons ago, was it
Mm.
2.5 years nearly?
Oh, a long time ago, yeah.
Yeah, and it was like every time I lent into trust, every time I started to trust myself again, something good would happen, and I was like, oh, it was like the universe was. Hang on a second. Something's happening with my computer. It was like the universe was rewarding me each time I did it, and it started making me
Yeah.
feel really good. And I was like, well, the more I do this, the better I feel. So I'd start to lean into the trust, and then something amazing would happen. Then I'd lean into the trust, and then I started to also notice that when I started to trust my abilities, like when I would hear what would come through, I'd speak it, and then there'd be times where I'd hesitate and doubt, and then the information would get blurred and not be as accurate.
Mm.
Whereas, or I would hold back in saying something in a reading, say for instance, and then someone would say something and like, that's what that was. I should have said that, because that would have then solidified the accuracy of the reading, right? So I just trust myself now.
Yeah,
And
beautiful.
if it's not happening for the person, they go back later and be like, oh wait, actually that happened, or that's connected to that, and it just links up. And
Right.
the
It does.
feedback
It
is
all it
amazing.
all links up. And the feedback is part of the journey of like trusting, right?
Yeah.
So, my next question for you is about letting go of self-judgment and forgiving ourselves
Mhm.
and how transformative that can be. What steps did you take to cultivate that self-forgiveness, and how did it impact your personal growth?
I think for me, forgiveness isn't just saying sorry, isn't just like a lot of people say forgiveness is more for yourself than it is for the other person when it's in regards
Yeah.
to other people. But I feel like sometimes you need to look at the fact that forgiveness is actually needs to be looked at like acceptance, accepting
Mm,
that shitty things may have happened, or good things are happening, and running with it, and learning from it. So acceptance is a really big thing for me. Um, Forgiving myself, it's knowing that I'm not perfect. There's
yeah.
no such fucking thing as perfect. We are all perfectly imperfect, or imperfectly perfect, however you
That's
want to
it.
put it, right?
Perfection
And
is found in the imperfection.
yes, and like I think it's also understanding that, and I like to say this quite often, is you need to go through the shit to
Yeah.
fertilize a fucking beautiful garden. And mine's grown quite well because I've been through some shit. And
Yeah.
it's taking it's finding the diamond in the rough. It's
Yeah.
however whatever cliches you want to use,
Yeah.
but it's seeing the good in everything. It's learning, it's finding the positive in the negative,
Mm.
and really kind of letting that transpire.
Yeah, beautiful. So, just reflecting on that piece, what were some of the steps that you took to cultivate that self-forgiveness for yourself? Like
Journaling.
what? Journaling, yeah.
Yeah, journaling was good for me. Um, the video logs that I had,
Mm-hmm.
um, I feel like I could see myself when I watched the videos back of my Jen's journal of my weight loss journey. I could see myself, and the light gone from my eyes,
Yeah.
and I could see myself judging myself when I was looking at
Mm.
myself. Like, I don't want to do that. Like now, well, I've mentioned it before. I walk past, sometimes I'll kiss the mirror, but like, hey,
Yeah, I love
beautiful.
it.
You know what I mean?
Hey,
And
sexy.
yeah, oh, looking good. And I am still struggling a little bit. I'm not going to say it's all roses at the moment, because I am still struggling a little bit with this whole weight loss thing, because I've been such a size for so long. Now I'm starting to
Mm.
kind of thin down. I'm still seeing the big girl. I'm still a big girl, but
Mm.
I'm not seeing as much of a transformation as others, because it's all in the mind, right? And it's still a work in progress, and
Bit of
that's what
body
I
dysmorphia, maybe still.
yeah, a little bit. And
Bit
it's
of
okay though.
reprogramming.
I'm just being gentle with myself and knowing that it will
Yeah.
come, and that it's taken years for me to get to this point, and it's going to take some time to kind of come back, and it's being more gentle with yourself, and knowing
Yeah.
that you don't have to have all the fucking answers all the time.
No, definitely. So, how has your journey to self love influenced your parenting and the way you teach your son about self care and authenticity?
So this is a big one for me. So I didn't realize how much I did for him. Like
Mm,
my husband caught me one day even saying, "You finish his sentences," and I'm like, "Oh shit, I didn't realize I did that." Like again, it comes from a place of love, and I needed to really, when he turned 18, which was only this year, I really needed to
mm,
take a step back and be like, I need to let him choose. Like
yeah,
when he was at school, I organized his apprenticeship. I did everything, and I was making him. I was getting him up in the morning, like he wasn't getting up by himself, and all this kind of stuff. And I really needed to kind of take a step back and be like, no, you need to do that yourself now. And but
yeah,
also leading by example, right?
yeah.
I remember when just before I had my surgery, he actually we had a discussion, and he didn't really want me to have it. And
Yeah.
he said it was quite a powerful moment for me. And he's like, Mum, I don't want you to, without saying it, he was saying that he didn't want me to have it. I was like, but why? And he goes, because what's the point? You're just going to go back and do it. Because he could see the pattern that I was doing.
Yeah.
I would take 2 steps forward and 10 back. And it really hit me in the soul. And I was like, what? I'm teaching him. He sees this. So if he's seeing that, that's what I do, that's what he's going to do. And I don't want to do that
Yeah.
anymore. And I made him a promise. I said, I promise you that I will do this, and I will. And it catapulted me into that change as well. And
Mm.
it was just really powerful. And then when I started to kind of do this stuff, it's like the ripples,
Yeah.
like I start to change, and then I start to see him start to
We don't
change. Like,
realize how powerful the ripples are.
no, he's got a job now. He gets up, like I've been for the past couple of days, I've been ringing him to make sure he's up because I'm still in mum zone, right? Just because it's new and he needs to learn. But
Yeah.
he's already in his car on his way to work, and I'm like, oh my God, he's got this. Do you
Yeah.
know what I mean? And it's
Yeah. I think it's really important with our kids. I've been through this too, the trust. Like
yeah,
when you stop ringing him, he'll know that you're trusting him. And when he knows that you trust him, that's when he actually starts trusting himself. But
yeah,
you know what? If he gets up late for work and he gets reprimanded, that's a consequence, right?
yeah,
He's not going to learn. You got to let them fall on their ass and make their
exactly.
mistakes and learn their way. And to me, that actually is a greater form of self-love than picking
Yeah,
up the phone and ringing and making sure that they're going
yeah,
to be at work on time,
yeah,
letting them find their own way. And
yeah.
yeah, that's beautiful.
It's
So
amazing.
there's
Yeah,
still, it sounds like there's still a little bit of a journey there for
yeah.
you,
The
and that
apron.
letting go, there's always another piece to let go of.
It's those apron strings. There's probably a couple of little strands left that I'm tightening up.
Yeah. Yeah. Cut, cut, cut. And you think you're doing it for them. You're actually doing it for you.
Yeah.
You're actually doing it for you. That's what
And
we do as mums.
it's also cool too because like as I'm going deeper and deeper into this work, I see him finding more of an interest in it as well, which is really cool.
Totally. Because he's seeing the result in you, and because that's affecting him, he's curious.
Hmm.
So yeah, I witnessed that at this end too.
Yeah.
Um, so what advice would you give to our listeners who want to embark on a journey of self-love but feel overwhelmed by societal expectations and external influence?
It's getting to a point where you don't worry about that anymore. And that takes practice, right? Because at the end of the day, people are going to pass judgment regardless of whether you are
Mm,
ace at whatever you're doing, whether you are the most glamorous person in the world, like what I was saying before. Um, Opinions are like assholes, and everybody's got one, right?
so
And that's not gonna ever stop.
yeah,
But I feel like there was a saying that I heard, and it was like the best thing you can do in life is be your authentic self. That
yeah,
is the biggest reward that you could ever give yourself. Because by doing that, you then show others that they can then be themselves, and it starts the ripple effect. And
yeah,
shine. You can be the beacon of light for others just by being you, and you can fill other people's cups just by being you, and it's effortless. And I
yeah.
feel like it's leaning into that trust, consistency. You don't go to the gym and get abs overnight. It takes a long time to kind of
It does.
build it. And it's
It
constant
does.
learning,
It does. It
constant
does.
learning, and always stay curious. Don't
Yeah.
think that there is a wrong or a right way. I always say there's no wrong or right, there's just learning.
Yeah. I love that. And the giving piece, like, people have an expectation that you're going to give if you're always the giver and you're always saying yes. So just, start saying no or finding other ways to say no. Fill your cup, right?
Hmm.
You've got a cup and saucer, fill your cup, allow that cup to overflow and only give from the saucer so your cup stays full.
Yeah.
I think that's really, really important. And just reflecting on that judgment piece, when we're affected by someone else's judgment, there's that sort of, there's a trigger inside for us that we're being invited to go and check out. Because judgment from anyone is actually just judgment of self. So when they're judging you, that says more about them than it does about you. The trigger that you're feeling actually says more about you than it does about them. So it's like this double-edged sword. Always be curious, always lean in, and really be open to the process of, exploring what that is for you. That's where the growth happens.
Sure does. Awesome.
Beautiful. So thank you, Jen, for sharing your inspiring journey of self-love and awakening. Your insights remind us that embracing our authentic selves is the key to unlocking inner transformation.
And remember, beneath the crust, lies beautiful essence of who you truly are. Embrace your journey with love and compassion.
And join us next week as we continue to explore stories of who we truly are. Embrace your journey, and together, let's elevate our souls and illuminate the path of self-love.
Big love.
Stay curious.